Hiya guys, Freddy here. Welcome back to another Retro RPG. The end of another week, the end of another poll. We've got an astoundingly slim win for the Aliens Adventure game. Now this is going to be a PDF review, so we're going over to the computer desktop to have a look at that in a wee second. And I'll be back at the end of the video with some other channel related stuff and some other poll related stuff. But before I do that, I'd like to take a moment to talk about my Patreons, who this week I have been told no to stay frosty. Now these are astoundingly good people who help support the channel and make all of this possible, and I'd like to thank them from the bottom of my heart. Their efforts are so much appreciated. But if you'd like to join them, and you'd like to help support the channel, and I sure wish you would, then there's Patreon in the description down below. If you click on it, you can check out some of our Patreon rankings, including the ability to see these videos a week early. But anyway, let's have a look at the Aliens Adventure game. So, this is the Aliens Adventure game, which came out from Leading Edge Games in 1991, and is obviously the game of the movie. It only includes information from the first couple of movies. I can't remember if Alien 3 had come out by 1991, but this doesn't have anything to do with that at all. It's just Alien and Aliens, mainly the second movie. And Leading Edge Games, who produced this, I've commented on before because these were a bunch of NASA rocket scientists who liked role-playing so much that they took a hiatus from their jobs at NASA and wrote a bunch of role-playing games until it turned out not to be profitable. They'd produced some games on titles which didn't do so well. They did Bram Stoker's Dracula, the role-playing game, which I can't imagine sold lots, and they ended up going back to NASA. So you look at their bibliography and you've got things like the aerodynamics of high-speed bodies at extreme altitudes and the efficiency of rocket engines and all this. Then you've got Aliens, you've got Living Steel, you've got Phoenix Command and all that sort of thing. And then they go back to the NASA stuff that they've published. But what they kind of are famous for, or at least to me, is the complexity of their rules. They really tried a simulationist system where the rules were extremely complex. I've gone over Living Steel on the channel before, and those rules are incredibly detailed and very, very slow to run. Now, Aliens supposedly uses a stripped-down version of these rules. Very similar, but far easier to run, which we'll have a look at in a couple of weeks when I get around to doing a rules breakdown on them. But that's been some people's problem with this game, that it is slow and a bit clumsy, focusing heavily on the realism of combat. And while that does make it pretty good, gunshots are extremely dangerous, and being attacked by something as large as an alien queen can just kill a character outright. So it makes it a very, very deadly game, very realistic towards the movies. It's not very exciting knowing that characters can just die so easily. Now, another thing I'd heard people complain about was the fact that the game focuses on aliens that they've made up and added to the universe for themselves. And I don't get that through this rulebook. Perhaps it was in supplements they published, which they started to focus on other stuff, but this really focuses on the two sides in the movie. The Colonial Marines, there's lots of information about that, and there's a chapter on the life cycle of the alien and all that kind of thing. While there is a lot of fleshing out of the universe, and there's a bunch of planets and alien species on them which you could use in adventures, they are extremely brief. It's not more than a paragraph or two on each of these alien species. Not really enough to flesh out for an entire campaign, but something to give a games master to go on. So it's pretty good in that fashion. Anyway, let's go straight to the back cover. Aliens Adventure Game. This time it's war. Now you can be part of the danger and excitement of the hit movie Aliens from 20th Century Fox. From the ruins of the colony that was destroyed by the aliens to the chaos and greed of Earth itself, the Aliens Adventure Game pits you against aliens, other dangerous life forms and corrupt humans as you find out what it takes to be a member of the Colonial Marine Corps. Another glorious day in the Corps. The accent of the game is on aliens, of course, but there is far, far more. For those who want to be beyond the alien and the Corps, there's a whole galaxy of deceit and danger in the bleak corporate future of the alien storyline. Try your hand at one of the other possibilities offered. Corporate mercenary, explorer, businessman, your choices are limited only by your imagination. The Aliens Adventure game prominently features full colour and black and white art from the movie, as well as fast, fun game mechanics. Fast-paced and intense, Aliens is sure to thrill anyone who enjoyed the movie. Included are sections covering character generation, colonial marine background, other character backgrounds, general and professional skills, specialised skills and training, personal equipment, individual combat, ground, air, and space vehicles and combat, worlds, colonies, and outposts, missions and campaign settings, alien life forms, and of course, the aliens, abilities, metabolism, and scenario ideas. So, as it said, it focuses on those, but it does flesh out the universe. Going into it, we can see credited to Barry Nakazono, who is the main guy behind Leading Edge Games. Now back to his job as a rocket scientist at NASA. An introduction, table of contents leading us through the character section, the skill section, setting, the aliens and equipment, combat system, vehicular combat for the Games Master, and then there's a bunch of tables and stuff towards the back. We've got a preface, which is information for the US Colonial Marine Strike Team, because the general setup of a campaign, as it suggests, is following on from the movie Aliens. So the Sulaco and its team have kind of been lost, and the Marine Corps is sending on more soldiers to find out what's happened on the planet. Now, while the atmosphere processor exploded, destroying the base, there's still the spaceship filled with eggs there, and there's possibility of other colonists across the planet who weren't just at the settlement. Other people like Newt's parents were out scavenging in the wastes and stuff like that, exploring the world. So we start off with the character section. There's lots of quotes in the border. Different characteristics. Strength, intelligence, willpower, health, agility. You've got secondary characteristics of charisma, leadership, motivation, and perception. Tells you how to generate them, character background, and we've got a sample for Hudson, one of the Marines out of the movie. We can see that this character sheet's fairly simple. We've got characteristics, we've got equipment, we've got their general skills, support skills, their personal status, age, money, knockout abilities, and then we've got some extra weapon data down in the corner. We've got the section on Colonial Marine Corps background. So, what's their education, their social background, branch of service, learning and skills, including basic training, specialist training, whether they've been on active duty, so you can extend their character lifespan out as they've picked up additional skills. Merit points and promotions, so you can take them right up to being a commander. Changing branches, got different branches of service, including staff officers there. We've got equipment and combat abilities, explaining those out. Lots and lots of tables, as is very common for leading edge games. They do like their tables. Yeah, I believe I've heard that in some cases, when you shoot somebody, there's as many as 7 tables you've got to go through before you get to what the final result is. And going by my experience with Living Steel, I would agree with that. Different information, ammunition capacity, etc. for weapons. We've got optional rules. Awards and reprimands table. Different kinds of duties here. So, garrison duties, base guards, civil disorder, military policing, hazardous exploration, colonial rescues. We're onto the skills section, where you go from unskilled up to Grand Master. Action reactions, interactive tasks, opponent skill rating generator, success and failure, going from complete disaster right up to work of genius with marginal success right in the middle, depending on how well you score on your rolls. Skills overview, support skills, lots of lovely pictures from the movie. Colonial Marine support skills, officer support skills. What else we got? Carrying on through the skills. Experience. And then we're on to the setting, which is perhaps the most interesting part of it. While you've got to have lists of skills and things, it's not really that interesting. It's just essential. So we've got the background, there's corporate mercenary forces. The Marines kind of stand in the middle. The influence of the corporations rising into the space travel. Corporate strife, war between the colonies. The Colonial Marine Corps is being created to hold the balance of power. We've got strike teams, we've got peacekeeping duties, espionage, corporate warfare, and colonial wars, along with mission generation. So, active duty assessments, whether you're on patrol or peacekeeping, whether you're looking for contraband, patrolling the corporations. Tartarus, a large colony which has fallen to powerful creatures called harvesters. And I believe these are the ones that people complained about the game focusing too much on, because it has mentioned them a few times here. We've got random rolls for what kind of missions, so you can easily create missions up. Tactical assaults, rear guard, corporate transitions, civil orders, anti-guerrilla warfare, investigations, bug hunts, the payments they'll get for it, different costs they'll have. Also mercenaries, because Colonial Marines will obviously be getting ordered around by the government, but you could be playing mercenaries who will be very similar to the Marines, but you'll be getting hired by the corporations to do different stuff. Corporate retainers, contracts for retainers, free strikers, their contracts, employers and safe houses, just going up different military groups you might be working for, and the different contracts they might be getting hired for. You might be going out for survival and medical aid, or an aftermath of an unsuccessful mission. Then we're on to the worlds. So we've got Earth, obviously the home world of humanity, so very, very important. But we've also got major worlds, the colonies, a nice star map here showing Earth at the centre and the different routes going out. Terraforming mining worlds, garrison systems, jump systems. And then we've got some detailed ones in the sectors. The world of St. John, Vulcus, Riesling, Starview, Dustball, just detailing out what these are like. Some of them are just starting up colonies. Dustball, for example, just has a few mining communities and not much more, whereas others are big colonies where there's cities and lots of population. Goliath, Crestus Prime, Alexandria, just going through the different sectors, lots of different worlds. We've got Hyperdyne System and Weyland-Yutani, so detailing out how they control a large sector of the galaxy, and the different worlds they've got: New Chicago, Cryosphere, Marduk, the New Eden sector, Grendel, a large colony of over 200,000 people, Honeycomb, Helix. Just lots of information about these different worlds, setting them all up with different tones. Another sector, the Tartarus sector, along with a lot of information about Tartarus, talking about the harvesters. And then we've got lifeforms. As I said, these are kind of brief. So we've got the Arcturians, the natives of Arcturus. They are mammal-like creatures about the same size as humans. Their society is like that of ants. They live in underground hives. They have a single large queen which lays eggs and raise their young in communal nursing chambers. But there's about 3-4 paragraphs of information on them, not a lot. We've got black body coral. We've got harvesters themselves, which take up just under a page. Hyperalgae, morphers, Panama plankton, brachus slugs, just different creatures to throw in instead of it being xenomorphs every adventure. There's some stuff to flesh it out a bit. I really like that. There's some interesting species in there. And we've got the aliens themselves, so it goes through the life cycle, the egg, the facehugger leap, warriors, fighting facehuggers, chestbursters, the warriors themselves, sentries, queens. Lots of information about how to use them, the different types of attacks they've got, plus just background information on how they work within the hive. We've got the alien metabolism, so it's talking about their acid blood and stuff like that. The layers, explaining how they create them. How to remove facehuggers. What else we got? And then we're on to the equipment section. So we've got quite a detailed section on aliens there. So just general stuff: field radios, intelligent units, communication gears, motion trackers, portable welders. These are all things we saw in the movie, plus a few extra things to flesh out for different types of missions. We've got combat fatigues, the body armor we saw, but we've also got hardcore armor, hydraulically assisted steel exoskeletons. Now, I don't remember seeing them in the movie, but it makes sense that they would have some kind of powered armor. If they've got the loaders that Ripley uses at the end of Aliens, why can't you just strap some weapons onto one of those and enhance the abilities of a soldier? We've got standard weapons, so pistols, pulse rifles, machine guns, flame units, shotguns. I don't see mention of the smart guns in there, which is a loss. I remember reading a very detailed write up of them in an Aliens magazine and loved it, all the information about how they've got autonomous modes and all that. Larger equipment, so hard shelters, hypersleep pods, power loaders. I've got a section on synthetics, talking through how you play them, including damage to them and illegal uses, because it mentions that one corporation out there, it doesn't name which one, has synthetic assassins, which is a lovely little idea to create artificial assassins. We've got different ground vehicles, the APC, how they get used as a command post. They've got defensive systems, although it doesn't detail out anything else a Marine Corps might use. I've covered the Alien Technical Manual in the past on my channel, and that had wonderful stuff like tanks and different vehicles that they would use in different circumstances, right up to when they're using full warfare and instead of just squad based. So we've got aircraft. Obviously, it details out the dropship quite well, but it also has the carry-all, which is a heavier loading dropship which doesn't really have the weapons. It can carry twice as much as a standard dropship. And we've got gunships, which is a dropship but with the cargo space taken out and weapons put in instead, so it carries lots more missiles. Again, it would be kind of nice if they'd fleshed it out to have fighters and things to defend the dropships while they're going down, instead of just using transport vessels in combat all the time. But the dropships were pretty much the Apache gunship helicopters, so it makes kind of sense, I suppose. We've got space technology, which goes through drive systems, navigation coordinates, but doesn't really go into details of the ships. I would have liked to have seen more information on the Sulaco and all the resources it carries. It's a massive big vessel. We see it has a couple of dropships. It's got an APC. What other resources can Marines call upon when they've got one of these ships? It's just not really detailed out at all. We've got brief paragraphs on system defense frigates, cruisers, recon ships, larger vessels. We've got space stations being detailed out, major installations around the areas. How to repair things. Then we're on to the combat system, detailing that out. Accuracy modifiers, hit locations and damage, disabling injuries and knockout, explosive weapons, different tactical notes, how to handle melee combat, how to use the aliens in combat, including the Queen's Grab and the Acid Blood, what the acid does in damage, special combat situations, so flame units, shotguns, smoke grenades, gas mortars. The harvesters, it has a large section on how they're dealt with in combat, fleshing them out a bit more and giving you options rather than just xenomorphs all the time. Medical aid, basis for recovery, medical aid rules, wounded capabilities and healing, recent wounds, very much in the tone of Living Steel, where you can take wounds and carry them around for ages, and a wound can kill you in a long time. You can bleed out over hours and hours. Anyway, we're on to the vehicle combat section. So it details ranges, different types of fire control, anti-missile fire, multiple vehicles in combat, air-to-ground and ground-to-ground fire, weapon systems including laser cannons, chain guns, mortars, light disruptors, heavy disruptors, spacecraft disruptors, light missile launchers, heavy missile launchers. We've got different missiles and warheads. The Sprint light missile, Dogleg light missile. Fleshing these out quite a lot because this is a combat game. Missiles that miss. So what happens if you fire a missile at somebody? Where does it go? Hit location damage for vehicles, crew damage if vehicles get hit, for ground vehicles and aircraft and spacecraft. Detailing out the different areas, systems within airframe units, airlocks, ammo bays, fuel tanks, etc. Lots and lots of stuff there. Systems for spacecraft, the same. Then we've got a Games Master section, so pre-generated characters, how to handle those. Different sort of backgrounds for NPCs, poor civilian, rich civilian, scientists, etc. We've got the movie scenario, so giving you some ideas for how to just run aliens. We've got campaign settings, suggesting starting off on LV-46, Archeron, after the events of the movie. Perhaps corporations are smuggling aliens. Perhaps aliens have gotten the loose somewhere. Perhaps you're having to hunt them down. Or perhaps one of the engineers' starships, I believe they're the engineers in the later movies, has been found filled with more alien eggs. Perhaps you're exploring space and there's other threats to find. We've got different mission ideas, so whether you're rescuing hostages, whether there's renegade military, so you're going up against other humans. We've got rules and stats for Phoenix Command and Living Steel, how to convert between them, including Dragonstar Rising. And that's it. As I said, there's a bunch of tables towards the end, but that's all the information in it. It's a little over-complex, but it's an interesting look at the Aliens universe before we found out lots and lots more from movies which weren't so good. So, that was the Aliens adventure game, and that won the poll this week with 30% of the vote, which is only narrowly ahead of the second place, Toon the cartoon role-playing game, which came on 28%. And in third place was Hardwired the sourcebook for Cyberpunk, which came on 24%. And during the early part of the week, it was pretty much a three-way tie. Hardwired was ahead at 1 point, Toon was ahead 1 point, and then Aliens drew ahead finally. And it was great to cover it, but it'd be fantastic to cover those other two. But way back behind in the poll ratings, on 14%, was D20 Future for the D20 Modern system, and in final place was the Crash Course Manual for Paranoia, which came in on only 4%, which is sad because I do love me some Paranoia. These things are fantastic, even though I think this wasn't one of the best books. Perhaps that's why it's not performed so well. But anyway, they're all cleared out of the poll, and we're going back to a Retro Adventures one. So, first up, we've got Operation Overlord for 2300 AD, and this is an adventure by 3W. Now, I covered one of their adventures for Twilight 2000 in a previous week, and I've covered one of the adventures for 2300, but I've never covered where these two things have come together to see what somebody else's view of the 2300 universe would be like. So that'd be pretty interesting. Second up, we've got an absolutely iconic Dungeons & Dragons adventure, The Tomb of Horrors. Now, we shall see if that wins, because it is so famous, but then again it's been covered in so many places. And to tell the truth, it's not one of my favourites. I think it's a pretty poor adventure. But if it comes up, we'll get to talk about that in the future. In third place, we've got Empire in Flames, the final part of the Warhammer campaign. Now, the campaign itself is absolutely iconic. It's considered perhaps the best campaign ever written. But this final part is much maligned. It's not seen as up to much at all. So it'd be interesting to look through and see how it compares to the rest, and see whether it deserves to be completely stricken from the record when people have rewritten it and written different alternate endings for that campaign. It'll be a fascinating thing to look through. After that, we've got Atomic Age Cthulhu. Now, while this is a source book for the Atomic Age, the 1950s in the Call of Cthulhu setting, it's also mostly adventures. Only about a sixth of the book is the setting. The rest are adventures. So there'll be so much to look through in the 1950s for Call of Cthulhu, which again fascinates me. I would love to look through this. And finally, we've got the wild card. We've got Imperial Double Cross for the Star Wars role-playing game. Now, this came out in 1997, but it's only kind of adventure because it's a choose-your-own adventure. You know, when you get to the end of a chapter, it tells you to turn to 76 if you go left, turn to 77 if you go right, and you get to choose your way through the adventure. A single-player adventure for Star Wars. But West End Games did use single-player adventures in a lot of their source books to get you into things. So it'll be interesting to see what a standalone adventure would be like, especially when it was published like any other RPG source book and not like an ordinary novel. What else have I been up to? Well, I've been publishing things over on DriveThruRPG as usual, classes as I lead up to this campaign thing, but I've talked about that in previous weeks, so I'm not going to keep wittering on about it. And over on RPG Gamer, I'm continuing through the Knights of the Old Republic comics, going through, reviewing them, and then statting them out. These are brilliant stories, and I'm currently covering the Vector cross-title story, which covered across 4 different timelines. So it'd be interesting to see how that comes out. I'm almost at the end now. Also, I'd like to bring attention to the Discord. While I've got a lot going on through September, I am building up to doing a sort of role-playing thing. Because we've tried to get groups together to play on the Discord before and timing just doesn't work out, I'm trying to come up with something that we can play through the Discord just as people chime in and join in, where I can run scenarios and 1 or 2 players can join in and influence the whole group. But this is in very early stages, but if you want to be interested in joining on that, then go over to the Discord. It's linked to in the description down below, and we can start working towards that and start playing in a kind of odd, disconnected way where if you can get into a game, you can join in, but you can join in anyway. But anyway, as usual, I think I've been wittering on for long enough, so thank you very much for watching. But as always, most of all, you look after yourselves, and I'll catch you later. Bye now.